Let's do it. Let's do it. Broadcasting from around the world, you're listening to The First 100, a podcast on how founders acquired their first 100 paying customers. Here's your host, Hadi Radwan.
Good to have you on the show, Marcelo. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for stopping by the podcast. It's very interesting what you've built, especially in the remote world where I operate as well. My company is fully remote. We like this model, but you've taken it to a completely different level. So I'll introduce you very quickly. Marcelo Lebre is the president and co-founder of Remote, which is a global HR platform that helps companies hire, manage, and pay their entire team more effectively compete in a modern global economy with a suite of products. Now you have payroll, international employment, contractor management, and much more. And you've raised to do that around 500 million from notable investors such as Accel, Sequoia, Index Ventures, General Catalyst, and a few others. Marcelo, welcome to the show. Did young Marcelo ever exhibit any signs of entrepreneurship early in your career?
I don't know. Parents used to complain a lot that I would take everything apart and then not be super able to put them back together. Or I would, but then there would be spare parts at the end. I think I've always been an anxious person. I wanted to see things happening and moving and coming to life on my own. I always hated to wait for others to do something. I remember in school it was a big of a problem because I would have to get something done. And I was never much of a student, but I like to get with things faster.
Is there anything you tinkered on early on in your life that was things that an entrepreneur would do?
Well, I think there are two things that led me to be what I am today. One is I had, my grandfather, he was very tech savvy. He had a lot of everything electronic. He would take things apart, build PCBs and things like that. And he had a computer, at a Spectrum. I remember looking at it and sort of marveling. And he introduced me to it. He gave me the first manual. And of course, it was in English. I didn't know what I was reading. But I was trialing it out and experimenting and drawing things and making sounds. Somewhat programming in a way, in a crude way and format. I remember the day that I started playing with it, I was so in love with that thing. There was a birthday anniversary of a birthday party in a family. I remember everyone was there and I took the manual with me. And I was sitting in the corner just reading it because I loved the idea that I could program something to do more for me, things for me. So that was one. And the second part is more of the fact that I wanted to be an astronaut, as so many kids do. And people telling me, and I tell this story quite often, it was more because I like to do things out of spite. And I remember it that people, I think when I said, I want to be an astronaut, the answer was like, they laughed and I said, well, you can't. I'm like, why can't I? And then the answer was not because I was not smart enough or strong enough or whatever. It was because Portugal didn't have an astronaut program. And so there was no way for me to learn and apply those things. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, just because I was born in this country, I don't have the same opportunities as anyone else. And, that is part of the impetus that led me to build what we build today, where you should do what you're really passionate about and have the skills for. Maybe I could have been a great astronaut. Who knows? I don't believe in ifs, so you never know. But that was it.
That's a great story. So bring us forward into the present, where you've built Remote back in 2019. How was Remote born?
The Remote was born out of two things. One is Job and I, my co-founder, were friends for 12 years. And we always were passionate quite about making sure that people could do what they loved. I had many thoughts. We built many projects across the years together. We never sold shit because we didn't want to spend time selling. We want to spend time building and working together. And that was always fun. We would do it on the side as a gig. And it was awesome. And so it brought us together, and always with the same topic. And all the things that we built across the many years was always the same topic. Something that would bring people together around the things that they're passionate about. And we had multiple shots at this space, the space of bridging talent and opportunity. And then we came to this realization where we amassed enough information, knowledge, know-how, and people network that we could really make a dent in the world. And that's what we did. We started by thinking through what was the best bridge to get talent and an opportunity together. How could we build it? And then, of course, we realized that that was through payroll and allowing companies and people to meet, even if they're not in the same continent, let alone country. And that started all, the whole crazy journey we've been in.
Amazing story. I think before the COVID times, selling the idea of being remote was very hard. Even convincing, the HRs that, hey, we could hire people from a different continent because they're talented enough and you can utilize them. It was very hard to sell. How did you validate early on this value proposition before COVID? Because when COVID happens, it's easy, right? Everyone went remote. But before that, were there any signs that this is going to be very successful?
Yeah, so this remote way of working, this distributed way of working is not new. It's something that you may be hearing about for the past 15 years. It's like it started as the digital nomads. Those people that would take pictures of a laptop and a margarita at the beach. Then they would post it on social media and say, hey, I'm doing my job. And everyone's like grumbling and like, oh, get a real job, get a life. And then it started to evolve, and it was always there, especially people starting their business. You start an idea, you usually start from home or from a co-working office, and then you get another person to join you, and then another. And sometimes, you're not both at the office. It's easier and it's more relaxed. And that is already distributed because you're finding a way to work on something, but you're not really in the same space. But eventually it would always evolve into everyone just joining into the office. But up until for the good part of the last 15 years, people started to take that on a bit more seriously. And why? Because you start to get a better internet connection, better equipment, lighter, easier to travel, better apps, better tools that would allow you to manage your time, communicate with others, and exchange information. And so that was obvious. And then you start to see companies, a lot of startups just embracing it. You had GitLab, you had Automatic, all these kinds of companies that embraced early on this distributed way of working. And honestly, I remember talking to investors even before starting remote, and they would dismiss companies that were remote. Even today, there are a few people that dismiss the idea that a remote company can work. But that it endured. And if something endures across time, there's something to it. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. Not always, but in many cases. And that persevered through time. That people didn't really want to go to an office to work. And honestly, I've worked in office all my life up until remote. Every single day I dreaded going into the commute, start the commute and end the commute. It was awful. It was always awful. And so the signs were all there. And I was friends with many companies that were remote. And so the thing was there. And also, it's not just remote. It's also distributed organizations. Companies that start in an office, but all of a sudden have to hire one person in this country on another, and another, and another, and another. And this is distributed work in the same model that remote work is. It just didn't have a name for it. And the end of 2019 helped the world to put a name to the thing and to make it put a number to the lane. Let's call it that.
Amazing. Do you remember your early customers and how did you convince them to use remote?
I do, and they're still customers. It was a mix of two things. One was people just hearing about us. When we started remote, what we did was we wrote a short blog post and we posted on social media. And people started to wonder, what's this thing? What is this new business model? And how does it benefit? Because it doesn't exist. What we were building didn't exist. There were some incumbents, yes, still exist today, but very clunky. They operate based on other entities, other companies. They offer a clunky, disconnected offering. Makes no sense. That's literally why we started remote. And what we brought to market for the first time ever was this ability to have a clean process end to end, very simple, very straightforward, but highly flexible and tailored, where you could just say, I want to hire this person with these conditions, I want to change the contract in that way, and I want to run it through this platform. And I don't want to think about it. I just want to run my business and work with my employees. And this resonated very much. I think what worked really well, looking back, was how simple and straightforward the messaging was. There was no long spiel to explain what the product was. It's like this one sentence. You can work from anywhere, can be employed from anywhere, and you get paid from anywhere. And that's it. It's so simple. It was so powerful. And I think often we fall in a trap, on our own trap, of trying to make things complex, more complex than they should be. Simplicity always wins, in every case. Occam's razor. So part of, as I was saying, part of our customers came because the messaging was very simple. It was very straightforward. And then the second part was us reaching out to customers. And we did quite a lot, still do quite a lot. That's how you run a business. And it's the same thing, actually. It's a very simple process. And you went through having great product and excellent service. And that's it. Ultimately, when things are simple and they're a straight line, in our case, one of the things that propelled Job and I to take on this challenge was how hard this was. We didn't take the same approach as the incumbents that had been around for 5-10 years. We built something from scratch. We still take that approach. We took apart what it means to run payroll in every single country. We have teams of experts in legal and compliance and payroll and HR that look at every single law and article and understand how can we work with it? How can we build then the several layers that enable our customers to do something much more simple? And so we do the work so that others don't. And that ability, it was so hard, and we saw that no one else did it. And still today, no one else does it because of that. And that is part of our success, because we take the hard route and we rebuild from scratch. And that proves you that if there's a pain that is so big and affects so many people, then people are willing to pay for it. And that is the key. Often we start with Journey, and I see many projects starting this way where people have high ambitions. And of course, they think that, everyone thinks their project is the best and the most successful is going to be the most successful. But if there's not enough pain around the world, people won't pay for it. And so you could have the simplest, the best thing ever with the simplest explanation. But if there's not enough need on the other side, or either it doesn't exist or they don't know that they have it. And that's also something that we included in a way that we addressed customers, is that they often don't know they have this problem. Even today, it's something that wins us tremendous amount of deals, is that using a competitor, often our customers have problems they don't even know about, from compliance, from product, from experience, from service. They don't even know they have it, but just assume that was the way to do things until you show them that there's a completely different way of doing things. And that is part of the game-changing sort of mentality that gets you going.
Makes a lot of sense. If you go back to your early days, at the beginning, any brand doesn't have enough power to get the inbound leads in. You have to go out, as you said, outreach. What channels worked for you the most, and what was effective about increasing your conversion rate?
We're very unique. For one, we have a very kick-ass domain. Remote.com's hard to beat. But something that works super well, and still today, word of mouth. Super powerful. It's one of the most powerful things. Get one customer happy. If they're happy, they're going to talk to others about you. And that is still the way to win. I think it's actually the primordial way. Anything you can do, you can throw a lot of money in paid search and optimize your engines. You can also use outreach tools that allow you to blast people, email, buy, mailing lists. You can do that all. Today, people are more sophisticated. The filtering tools are more sophisticated. All the mail providers are starting to block all that kind of stuff. You have to be vocal. Of course, using a really good messaging makes a huge difference within your social media, your social networks. But having a very strong word of mouth and very happy customers, initial set, if you focus on making the initial customers really happy, it's literally the best investment you can possibly make.
What do you feel was your biggest catalyst in terms of acquisition other than the COVID? Where did you see like the channel that helped you a lot to progress faster? I know more word of mouth is very sticky, but you also probably raised like 500 million. So you've been growing much, much faster than just word of mouth.
Wow, absolutely. Inbound was always very strong and remote, still today. And it's due to the fact that when people have a need, they will look for it and pay for it. You also have to learn to listen. You need to know where to listen to and who is your buyer. And that enables you to channel the conferences, the places you should be, the people you should meet and talk to. And of course, paid search is massive. You can do it in so many different ways, and it's been studied. It evolves, it changes. Now, something that is critical is that everything that we did, even the company is just 5 years of age, and we were only selling for like 4 years, because the first year we sold shit, we were just building. It's all outdated. Today, you have so many automated tools based on AI that do all the things that we did manually. And so there's really no playbook that can be used because it is all being rewritten as we speak. You have to always have the fundamentals. As I said, happy customers, have a great product, have a great service, have a single simple way to talk about what you do. And then you grab that and you replicate it across the different channels, be it word of mouth, referrals. Referrals today, of course, is massive due to the network effects. And also all the paid engines. And also fundamentally being out there, talking about what do you do, being vocal, meeting people. That today's, honestly, there's no magic. It's just about how you meet a need with a product.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing this. What's a principle that you live by that has served you well on your journey?
I call it the rule of 3. I'm not sure it's a really thing. As time passed, I started to put pieces together. Actually, there are 2 things that I live by as a manager. And I started as CTO, and I became COO, and then today I'm president. I don't really know what I do anymore. But I have these 2 things. It's like 2 personal frameworks. One is the rule of 3. Rule of 3 tells me that of all the people you manage, and today remote is like 1,500 people across the world. If you as a manager can identify 3 people that are your critical players, if those 3 people can also identify their 3 people, so on and so forth, this will equate to somewhere around 20-30% of your organization. Those 30% are the absolute core to your success. The absolute core. It is not okay to be going around and telling people that they are part of the 3 or that is a thing. That's not okay. It's elitism. It's going to lead to inequity, bias. And also, people change. But you have to understand that there's always a pillar of the organization, a core of the organization that is responsible for making you leap. The rest of the organization, they're great people. They will continue to make you run. They will continue to allow you to run your organization. But there's always a core of people that will make the most absolute difference in a day-to-day of every company. And you need to know who they are, hug them in a way, not literally, but make them happy. So this is the first rule. Then the second rule is what I called, I'll made this up. It's called single responsibility principle. And I apply this from engineering days to management, which is in every case that I don't know, I try to unlock what I don't know, that I don't know. And I do that by trying to measure my universe. And I measure my universe through measuring 3 things: speed, capacity, and efficiency. And I don't know what they are, but I tend to think about a pipeline of work. Efficiency, how many things do you put on one end that come out on the other end? Well done. Speed, how fast does that happen? And then capacity, how many can you do in parallel? And so in every area, be it engineering, operations, payroll, legal, sales, I will look at my universe and I'll try to measure what are the top 3 speed, capacity, efficiency metrics that can show me how my system is running. And I will evaluate my system based on that. And once I know what is not working well, I will only focus on that thing. And once you solve that metric, you replace it with the second worst metric. And so you're always focusing on the top 3 problems that you have to solve for. And once those 3 are solved for, you'll go on to the next 3. And that hyper prioritizes how you do. But in any system, once you get rid of the waste, the system by itself is in average optimized. And so I use those 2 things, rule of 3 and single responsibility.
Great principles. We'll definitely put those in the show notes. On the speed of execution, what's your take at Remote when it comes to speed of execution? Is it as a priority up there, or does it come after certain specific things? Because we've seen specifically in your market that a lot of the competitors have raised so much money and they are attacking the market quite aggressively, and at this space you need to be fast enough so that they don't compete or beat you to the client. So how would you look at that approach when it comes to speed of execution?
Direction is more important than speed. Always. It's the hare versus the tortoise story. Always. It never fails. It doesn't matter how fast you go. It really doesn't. If that's your number one value, then you got it wrong. No one cares. Also, we're in the HR space. No one wants to be the hero. No one wants to show up with the newest tool on the block that does this faster or that. Come on. This is people's livelihood. This is compliance. This is legal. You have to do it well. You have to do it great. And you have to do it in a way that represents what the future of work looks like. That is what I live by. Direction over speed.
Not speed. Amazing. One last question. What's next for Remote?
So many things. I wish I could answer this with like an amazing roadmap. We do have it, but we've learned to grow with our customers quite a lot. We learn to grow with the market. And also, the funny, interesting thing about the future of work is that there's a lot that we don't know. And so we've been very happy and fortunate to work with governments, institutions across the world to keep building towards that. Not just building, but helping the world understand what the future of work looks like. The future for Remote as a company is continuing this growth trajectory. We want to keep building the HR backbone of organizations, giving the opportunity to people across the world, getting them paid no matter how, getting them a best suite of tools that they can use to do their job, and to managers and admins, just take the load off their plate, make their lives easier, extend their needs, and keep building. And then as time progresses, the future is about expansion, vertical and horizontal. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Exciting times. We wish you the best of luck on your journey. How can people reach you, and are you hiring?
Yeah, always hiring. Always. Very easy. My name is Marcelo Lebre. I think there's another person that shares this name with me on the internet, and I'm better looking, or I'd like to think so. But anyway, very easy to reach on Twitter, Marcelo_Lebre, LinkedIn as well. And you can always email marcelo@remote.com. It's very easy.
Amazing. We'll put all of these in the show notes. Marcelo, thank you for stopping by. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the First 100. We hope it inspired you in your journey. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or Spotify, and share it with a friend starting their entrepreneurship journey. Leave us a 5-star review. Your support will help spread our podcast to more viewers.